Hi, Stefan, the BMW DIY guy. I wanted to share a really cool weekend project with you, and one that I did just recently. I'll be honest, I saw a really cool video up on YouTube of a guy who painted his engine cover in his BMW F30, and I'm like, that's really cool, something I hadn't thought about. So I also wanted to see if a way that I could kind of bring the theme colors of my car even into the engine bay. Now, my F32 is graphite metallic on the outside, black leather with red accents on the inside. And I'm like, what can I do to bring that into the motor? And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna paint my engine cover and my intake pipe. So you wanna make sure to do this right. You are dealing with some high temperatures, and if you do something like your intake pipe, your car is gonna be down for roughly 24 hours because you can't drive it without your intake pipe in, right? So I wanna show you how I did this, and then you can do it too. Let's get out to the garage and get started. Pulling the parts apart on this is really straightforward. Your intake is going to look different depending on what you have. Obviously, I've got the CTS turbo intake. I'm going to take the center portion out because this is that black pipe and this is what I'm going to enamel coat. Your engine cover comes off really simply. Just pull up. Mine's a little bit loose because I loosened it already. Just comes up and pulls away. And I'm going to set it aside. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off my center roundel. So I'm going to use my plastic trim tool and get underneath to pull this off because I don't want to paint this. Obviously, if you want to, that's up to you, but I'm going to pull it off and put it back on when I'm done. So pull this off, just take it off nice and easy, set it aside safely, and then you've got your intake tube here as well. In my case, I've loosened the hose clamps on either end and I've moved them up a little bit and moved them down a little bit. Yours may look a little bit different. If you've got the OEM, I wouldn't do this to the OEM, but that's just me. Okay, so I just pull up on the center post to get it loose and then just work it out of place. And it should come out just like that. All right, so I've got my intake tube out. I'm gonna suspend this, but the first thing, of course, I'm gonna do on all of this is clean all of it. So I'm gonna do that off camera. You don't need to see me washing all of this. I'm just gonna take some soapy water, clean it all down, take the cover, clean it all down, dry it off thoroughly to make sure that there's no outstanding water left on it. But this is fun. I mean, why not? This is really simple and easy project, and something I think that's gonna change the way that my car looks from the inside. Yeah, I've got the graphite metallic with the black interior with all the red accents, so I'm going to add some red accents to the hood, which is also going to match my filter really well too. So I'm going to wash all that stuff off camera, and I'll be right back. All right, so what I'm going to use for this is pretty standard. So I'm looking at engine enamel. So this is 500 degrees, which is well past what the plastics and the rest of the engine components in this area are going to be able to take. So I'm going to be using, this is Rustoleum engine enamel and red. I'm going to be using red and black. So the other thing I wanted to do, so you can see I've suspended this. I've also taken the rubber plug out of the little extension bar in this because I want to be able to do multiple coats, put them on really lightly, let them dry a little bit, come back and do another coat. And I want to be able to do it on all sides. So of all things, I've actually used a rake handle, stuck it into the pipe, covered my rake handle so I don't get paint all over it, off my workbench, and just suspended the pipe off it. So again, nice and super simple, just nice, light, even coats, because what I don't want to do is have this dripper look bad. So I'm just going to do a nice solid coat over all of it, all the way around, and then I'll come back and do it again. So nice and simple, nice and simple. Then I'm going to give it probably 5 or 10 minutes between coats, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it multiple times. So I'm already seeing, I need to be a little bit lighter because I'm already seeing some drips. So I'm doing this real time, so you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm spraying on a little too heavy, so I'm going to back off a little bit. If I have to, I'll just wipe off my big drips and do it again. Yep, give a little bit of some drips here, but that's all right. So we'll go through this. I'm going to clean it up a little bit, make sure I get all my edges, and I'm sure this is going to look great. I'm really excited about this. Yep, so I just need to go a little bit lighter than what I was doing. Okay, so I'm going to come back for multiple coats. And as you can see, I've masked off the ends to not get paint on the inside. So what I don't want to do, I'm going to take my cover and I'm going to put it down below this and put it on a block and spray it next. But as you can see, pretty straightforward. I'm not going to make you endure me going through multiple coats on this, but really straightforward. This could be a nice bright enamel red when I'm done. All right, so first coat on the intake tube is done, and I'm going to let that dry for a little bit. Now, for the cover, obviously I've taken the roundel off. It's got a series of little clips that go in. I've got it suspended on a block up off the ground so I can get the edges. And again, you got to go really, really light, lighter than I did on the intake pipe to make sure you don't have any drips. I've pulled the roundel off. I've cleaned it really nicely. I've also taken the foam out because when I cleaned it, I didn't want to soak that foam. I didn't know how long it would take to dry out. All that interior foam is just on a series of little hooks that you can just pull it right off. So in this part, same sort of thing, just really, really light. And I'm gonna go much, much lighter on this first initial pass than I did on the intake. I think I went a little too heavy because there were a couple of drips I had to clean up. Like I said, with it suspended, I can get all the way down to the edges without really any problems. So I'm gonna go really nice and light. Everything was really nicely dried off. So there's no moisture, anything else. And we'll get this done. And I figure I'm probably gonna do 5 coats maybe, 4 or 5 coats. It depends on how the later coats look. Because I really want a really clean enamel look on this when it's done. And I've seen this done before with other colors and I know that it can do it. So I definitely want a really nice clean enamel color. So I'm gonna keep going until I got it. So I figure that's probably gonna be 4 or 5 coats total. So there you go. So I'm gonna finish up the rest. As you can see, it's gonna come along. I'm gonna do all the rest of the coats, and then I'll show you when we start to wrap up. All right, so all my coats are done. I've got it out. I've got a little bit of sun this afternoon, so I've moved it so it can be out in the sun. You can see good reflection. Turned out really, really well. I think the second one, if I ever were to do this again, would be better than the first. I've learned a little bit as I've gone and done this. I'll try to share some of that. I've got a couple of little drips that I might use some really fine sandpaper on just to even out. Because what I found in a couple of little spots, I ended up basically with like a drop mark or something, like a little bubble that wouldn't want to go away. And I don't know if that was from the little bit of maybe residue water or simple green cleaner or something left on the cover when I cleaned it. So I probably would have, were I to do this again, I would wash it the same, simple green and all the good stuff. And then I'd probably hose it off again, dry it all off like I did, and probably give it longer to dry just to see, because the vast majority of it is just fine. There's a couple of little places with, like I said, this almost like a bubble mark. So the other thing I'm going to do is once this all dries, I'm going to use black enamel, and I'm going to touch up and bring, you know, the twin power turbo lines back, the BMW back, and I'll put the roundel back in, which is really thin metal with these little clips that go down in. You probably should push out that roundel from behind. So take your foam out and push the little clips on the back of the roundel, push them and push it up and out. That way you don't bang up the roundel at all, because it really is thin metal. So looks really good. Let me transition over and show the charge pipe. All right, so here's the charge pipe. The front view basically would be as, you know, you're standing in front of your motor. Looks pretty good. Same thing, I've got a couple of little bubbles that I think I'd probably be the only one to notice. It's still very wet. I put the last coat on about 10 minutes ago. So, but all in all, I think it looks really good. And when it dries, it should dry out really nice and glossy. So all in all, I'm pleased. I would do a little bit differently if I did it again. And so you can learn from my lessons. What I'm going to do on this, like I said, this is the orientation it's going to be when it's in place. Forgive any background noise, vehicles going by. So right across here, I have my own stencil. And I'm going to use the same black enamel. I'm going to lay down the stencil where the CTS Turbo used to be, and I'm going to put my own logo. And you'll see, I have a habit of naming my cars. And so I'll share that, so once it's done, you'll see what it is. So, but obviously I've got to give this a chance to dry. So I'm going to let the parts sit in the sun for a little bit, and then I'm going to bring them inside to dry overnight. So the enamel will be all nice and ready to go, especially when I add the black back here. And on the engine cover, I'm going to use a brush. So I'll spray some of that same Rustoleum engine enamel black into a little paint can, and then I'll brush it on for the stripes and the letters. All right, here we are in its glory. It's pretty much done. with a couple of notable exceptions that I'll point out here. It's a little tomatoey right at the moment, especially as I look at the camera. It's deeper red. I've got a really bright white, like 6,000 Kelvin LED light on it, so it's washing it out a little bit. It's a much more deep, vibrant red than the orange right at the moment. So a couple of lessons learned here that I want to share. So the roundel in the center, definitely pull off the insulation layer on the bottom of your engine cover first. And that roundel has little metal tabs that you can bend back straight, and that roundel comes out really simply. You do not have to pry it from the top, which is what I did initially and realized I didn't need to do that. You'll ding it up, it's really thin metal. My intake pipe looks really good. I made, as I was doing the installation, I scraped it a little bit, and the reason why is I forgot my clear coat. So when I ordered my enamel, I forgot to order the clear coat, so that'll show up in a day or two, and I'm going to touch that up, and then I'm going to pull this back out and I'm going to clear coat everything. And then the other thing is I was going to do a custom stencil right here, which I screwed up. And so I just covered it back over with the red enamel, and I may do it again later, we'll see. Another lesson learned there. So this paint is very dusty and dry, so you want it when you're spraying it, spray it from really high and give it coat after coat after coat after coat. Now, to do the cover and the pipe was one full can of the red enamel, and I'm out. So I can't even touch that up right now because I'm out of it completely. So, and like I said, forgive the color, it is a bright, vibrant red. And I used the black engine enamel that I put on with a paintbrush on the lettering and on the stripes down the center. So the paint, number one, shoot it from really high. So my stencil, I screwed up, I put my stencil on, and my initial coat, I sprayed way too heavy and it got underneath the stencil, whole nine yards. I should have sprayed it from probably 18 inches or 24 inches back so it would not get underneath the stencil, and I'm sure it would have looked fine. I screwed it up. So if you want to do something similar, it's cool. It's not bad. It's a little rough right now. I might even sand it and when I coat it again, when I get another can of red, because I'm out completely. So really spray nicely. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So I've got a little bit of the coating right here is a little bit rough. It's 24 hours dry at this point. It's a little bit rough here, again, because I oversprayed. So if you do this, this is not hard, but don't get impatient like I did. Like, I've got a little bit of a drip right there, you can see. Don't get impatient like I did. One, get the enamel that you want, the engine enamel, so it's rated to 500 degrees, which is higher than the plastic. Two, don't get impatient. Really high coats, really high dusting coats. And the paint really wants to dust, like 3 and 4 feet beyond my cardboard that I used on it. It's sprayed outward, and I'd find a dusting of the red. Okay, but all in all, I'm really pleased. I've got a little bit of touch up. If I was going to do it again, I'd do it a little bit better than I did this time from the lessons learned. Like I mentioned earlier in the tape, I had a little bit of like little bubbles, or like little holes that like wouldn't want to fill in. Like there's one right there. It's filled in now. It might have been from some residue simple green, maybe. So I would have washed it, dried it, and really been more thorough to make sure it was dry before I was really excited to paint it. So, and then the other thing is clear coat it, and I haven't done that yet. So my clear coat shows up in a couple of days. I'm going to get that done, and I'm going to turn the light off now. It's going to be a little dark, but I hope it'll be a little more the right color. Still looks orange on the camera. So forget, it looks red in person. It looks bright fire engine red in person. So as I look at it and I look through my camera, it looks orange. So, but again, choose what color you like. So there you go. I'm really pleased. This is really simple. Considering I'm going to order a can of clear coat that I forgot, and I'm going to order another can of red so I can do a little bit of touch up. You're probably looking out the door about 30 bucks. So really not that hard. The hardest thing was, and let me turn the light back on, because I saw somebody do something similar, one of these painting their engine cover, and there was a lot of, did you zoom in? Well, I'm going to. So like I said, you can see a little bit of rough surface, but that's okay. I mean, it's like I probably see it more than anybody else, and I think that'll get glossed over when I get the clear coat on. I used a paintbrush really carefully, and I did my absolute best. Oh, that reminds me. So I used a chisel, a very small chisel tip paintbrush, which allowed me to pull at these edges. So I'd pull and then brush. And then I reversed the whole cover and would pull from the other side and brush to fill it in. All in all, I think I did pretty well. I can see a couple of places here and there where I have a little bit of paint glop. A little bit, there's one teeny tiny one right there. That one I get another can of red. I'm gonna probably use a toothpick and come back and just get those little bit of paint glops that came over. But all in all, I am really pleased. I like this. This is not a bad way to spend about 30 bucks. And it's really distinct, it really looks good. Like I said, and there's where I scraped the pipe, actually with my ring, of all things, when I was putting it back into place. I'm sure that wouldn't have happened if I had the clear coat on. So I'm gonna touch that up and clear coat it. So all in all, it's done. I think it looks really good, even though it looks orange on the camera. All right, back inside, and as you can see, it's really not that hard. And you know, I really simplified the process because you don't need to see me spraying 8 or 9 coats onto the parts, right? It's all pretty straightforward, but I really want to share the lessons learned now that it's done. Okay, so there's some things, if I was going to do this again, you know, this coming weekend, I would do things a little bit differently. And so if you can learn from the little bits that I did or didn't do, or even the couple of mistakes I made, you can do better on your first attempt that I did on mine. All in all, I'm really pleased. I think it looks fantastic. And with the hood up under normal light, it looks really good. Ignore the orange. As you can see in the video that I shot, it looks like completely orange. Now, if you look at the positive battery post cover up in the corner, which is, you know, an OEM part that is bright, vibrant red, it looks orange too. So it's not that I sprayed the wrong paint. So a couple of lessons learned here. Again, I was really impatient. I really wanted to get this done, so I probably could have dried both pieces a little bit better and avoided those like little pinprick, almost like little divots that came up. And there's a couple here and there, and the paint filled in on them, but you can see them. The other thing is, I'm going to still have to clear coat my parts, which make sure to do that. So whatever color you do, also get that engine enamel clear coat, so it'll be nicely protected. As you can see, I dinged up my intake pipe a little bit, actually with my ring as I was installing it. And so I'm going to touch that up and I'm going to enamel coat it so everything will be just fine. Really want to stress, make sure to use engine enamel or high temperature paint because of the temperatures under your motor. Now, rated up to 500 degrees, your plastic is going to melt long before that. So if it's that temperature, the last thing you're going to be worrying about is your paint. But don't use just ordinary paint on any of this, right? Use engine enamel. Last thing to also think about as well as you do this, the paint itself. Now, I used the Rustoleum engine enamel. You can use whatever brand you would like. And I've got that all linked down below as well. But don't be as impatient as I was. Take more time, do more coats, and do it from higher. So what I really noticed is this is really dusty paint. So I had cardboard spread out really well. I had it draped all really, really well. And I found little bits of red dust like 5 and 8 and 10 feet away from where I did the work. So it swept all up because it's sprayed out that far. It's sprayed out dry, right? But it will go all over the place. So don't do this in some place that you could potentially get this on your car or other things, right? So be careful when you do this. Now, like the mistake I made, like I was gonna use that template, right? Which I might still do in sometime in the future. This paint goes on really, really dusty. So make sure that you're pulled back far enough away from it so you're laying on really dry, dusty coats as you go. And put on a nice dusty coat and then come back in 5 or 10 minutes, right? If you're spraying till it's wet, it's gonna drip. It's going to cause other issues. So make sure long, high, really kind of high dusty coats as you spray the parts. And then I think you'll avoid the couple little drip marks that I have that I mentioned. And if you do something like I did with the template, it won't blow underneath all of it. And it looked terrible. When I first took it off, it looked terrible. So you can learn from my mistakes as you go. All in all, I really am happy. I had my hood up yesterday when I was done, and it's just bright, vibrant red and looks really, really good. And you know, there's that joke of, you know, red makes you go faster, right? So maybe my car is just that much faster now. So all in all, super, super simple. If you like what you've seen, please click subscribe and the little alarm button. I've got a lot more big projects that are on the way as well. Everything that I've used is in the description below. I try to answer any questions I get, and I look forward to seeing you on my next project.